Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Glad to be joined by my crew tonight. We're going to be talking about NFL quarterback bust. Great subject to talk about. We just recently concluded the NFL draft, so we don't know what quarterbacks are going to wind up in this dubious category tonight, but we're going to focus on the past and the present. Introducing you to my crew tonight, I got Rick Curti, Greg Fuchs, and Steve Balestrieri, the dream team of my football group. Glad to have everybody on board. Everybody can give their own brief introduction. Rick, go ahead and start up.
My name is Rick Curti, founder and CEO of the Charlotte Bats. We're a grassroots movement to bring Major League Baseball to Charlotte. Originally from Southern California, but been living in Charlotte for the past 13 years. And I'm excited to do this show. I remember a lot of you guys getting drafted and getting all excited about them. And then a lot of them were wah, wah, wah. So we'll see how many are on that wah, wah, wah list.
And obviously you are trying, and you're looking to get a baseball team in Charlotte with the Charlotte Bats, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, and Greg Fuchs, a sports writer for the South Florida Tribune. Greg, give yourself a brief introduction.
That is correct. South Florida Tribune, write a couple articles a week, so please check it out. I grew up in Massachusetts, always hated the Patriots, actually grew up a Colts fan during the days of Johnny U. But when they moved to Indianapolis, they lost my allegiance. And around the same time, I moved to South Florida. So I've been a Dolphin fan for the past, 25, 30 years or so. And I'm proud to say not one Dolphin quarterback is on my draft bust list.
And last but not least, Steve Balestrieri, a New England guy who moved to actually Southwest Florida. So Steve's got to be liking his beautiful weather in the tropics. Steve, go ahead.
Yes, I do. Steve Balestrieri, I write for PatsFans.com, and yes, I am a Patriots fan. I suffered with them all through my youth, through the days at Fenway Park, through Harvard Stadium and the old dump of a stadium they had in Foxborough before the new one. I also write for a military site called SoftRep.com, but beyond that, I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's list because I'm betting big bucks that we're all going to have a lot of the same names on here.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. And of course, my name is Scott Morganroth, CEO and published with the South Florida Tribune. Obviously, we're an online publication with a broadcast division, so we're a multifaceted operation. And I've been in the media business for the better part of 41 years. We have a YouTube channel. We encourage everybody to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. I have a lot of big and better things going up there. We have a lot of great content as well. With that said, okay, quarterback bust is the theme of the night. And we're going to go ahead and lead off with Greg Fuchs. Greg is going to go ahead and read off his list and give an explanation on everybody. And then we'll follow with Rick, Steve, and then I'll give my 2 cents as well. All right, go ahead, Greg.
Thank you much. I had two criteria for my list, and I realized everyone might have different criteria, but for me it was you had to be drafted in the top 10 of the draft, which meant everyone thought you were going to be pretty darn good. So there are high expectations. And the other criteria I had is you had to have a terrible career, not just a disappointing career, not just a bad career, but an embarrassingly bad, terrible career. And who met that criteria better than anyone else? Ryan Leaf. I mean, before I put this list together, he was the one who first came to mind. I was hoping he wouldn't disappoint me when I did my research, and he didn't disappoint. He only played 4 seasons, only threw 14 touchdown passes. He was the second overall pick in the draft. And where he really got draft bust bonus points, for those of us old enough to remember, in that draft, I think the NFL was split. Who should go number 1, Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf? That's how good everyone thought Ryan Leaf was going to be. And he just turned out to be a total dud. And then he also had a bunch of off the field problems also to get him some additional bust bonus points. Speaking of problems off the field, number 2 on my list, Art Schlichter. Didn't have the high expectations of a Ryan Leaf, but he was still selected 4th overall. And the amazing thing about him when I was doing the research, he only played in 13 games and he only started 6. Had 3 total touchdown passes. And he's unfortunately best known for some severe gambling problems, which led to other crimes, extortion and theft, et cetera, et cetera. And he still is in jail today. So a sad story and a big bust. Number 3, Jamarcus Russell. Physically, probably the ultimate prototype. He was 6'5", I think 265 pounds, was fast, had a cannon for an arm, and the Raiders took him first. Was he first overall? Where did he go? I forgot. Yeah, first overall pick. So high expectations for him. And he only ended up playing 3 seasons. When you're the number 1 pick in the draft and you play 3 seasons, you know you were pretty darn bad. And he only finished with 18 touchdown passes in his career. Number 4 is the who? Rich Campbell. I got to be honest with you. I had zero recollection of Rich Campbell. Didn't know who he was, but he was drafted 6th overall by the Packers in 1981. For my list, I went back to 1980. Never started a game in his career. 3 total touchdown passes. So that's pretty bad. 5 and 6 of my list, I'll combine them because they're similar. Achilles, Smith, and Andre Ware. I remember when they were drafted, had good college careers. Everyone thought they were going to be pretty good. Drafted in the top 10. Both of them only played 4 seasons, and both of them only threw 5 touchdown passes. Doesn't get much worse than that. Todd Blackledge, number 7 on my list. He was drafted 7th overall in 1983. Number 1 that year was John Elway. Blackledge played 7 seasons, I believe. Don't have the stats right in front of me, but he played some games. He started for a while. The reason I put him a little higher up on the list as compared to his stats is he was drafted ahead of Dan Marino and Jim Kelly.
Well, a few stats worth noting: 29 touchdown passes and 38 interceptions.
Yeah.
Isn't going to compare to the other guys. Go ahead.
So nothing special there, but getting drafted ahead of those 2 guys, that gets you bonus points. 2 other disappointments, 8 and 9. Won't spend a lot of time on them. Heath Shuler, 3rd overall, only played 5 seasons, 15 TD passes. Matt Leinart, All-American, Heisman Trophy winner, absolute dud in the NFL. He played 7 seasons, but he only threw 15 touchdown passes, so a big disappointment there. Some people will probably have this next guy higher on their list, Tim Couch. He was the 1st overall pick by the Browns in 1999. And unlike some of the guys in this list, he actually played some. The Browns kept giving him chance after chance, and he didn't do much with it. Played 5 seasons, threw 64 touchdown passes, which is probably the most touchdown passes of anybody on this list, by the way. Number 11, I had Kelly Stoffer. He was drafted 6th overall in 87 by the St. Louis Cardinals. Never played it down for him because he held out. And then Seattle said, okay, we'll take him. We'll give you 3 draft picks for him. He played 5 seasons, 7 touchdown passes. That's pretty bad. And number 12 on my list, David Klingler, drafted 7th overall by the Bengals. Didn't do much. Played 6 years, 16 touchdown passes. But that's my top 12.
All right, so let's go back to Kelly Stoffer. He had 19 interceptions. By the way, that didn't help his cause of 7 TDs and 19 interceptions. Let's go back to a couple of guys on that list, okay, that you talked about. I can give you the explanation behind why Andre Ware wasn't very good. Run and shoot quarterback, run and shoot offense with Houston. Detroit, we thought it was a very good pick when they initially picked him. You go from a similar system from the college ranks to the pros. You think that translates to success. Only one little problem, okay? Don't commit the cardinal sin and hold out, and then all of a sudden you fall behind in the playbook, right? And then all of a sudden you miss reps, you miss training camp, right? See, that's the recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's bad when guys hold out, especially young quarterbacks, and they're expected to take over, the team. It's usually a recipe for bad things to happen. And Ware was one of those guys who he held out. It really hurt his development. I think he was taken 6th or 7th overall back in 1990. And because of the system that he played in, it really stunted his development. And then I think, when he lost his confidence a little bit after that, it seemed like his accuracy dropped off too, because when we were talking about him offline, I started thinking back to some of you'd probably remember a lot better than me because you're a Detroit guy, but, it seemed like his accuracy became an issue for him too.
Well, he had Mouse Davis, he had June Jones. You would have thought that would have been right for success. The problem with Andre Ware is he just missed too much time. And, when we talk about universities producing quarterbacks, the University of Houston produced David Klingler, and he didn't fare much better either, as Greg just pointed out. So, some universities produce quarterbacks. Some of them rely on the high-powered passing attack, but doesn't necessarily mean it translates into the National Football League. So, those are some. We all know about Ryan Leaf. I think the biggest issue I had with Ryan Leaf was he made the biggest mistake on the planet. Don't go out there and annihilate a reporter, and make an idiot out of yourself, and he did. His reputation will always be known for that rant in the locker room, and then it led to the other immature problems that subsequently haunted him throughout his career. So you don't go out there and act like an immature, petulant child in the locker room with reporters. We see this stuff. We write it down, we report it. Ryan Leaf, to me, violated one thing you don't do. When you don't have the numbers, you're going to be left wide open for criticism. So a very overhyped pick, like Greg alluded to. You had Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf. Bill Polian probably anguished over that, but it's safe to say Bill Polian got that one right. The other one, well, what can I say? Art Schlichter, legal problems. We'll be talking to him more about that later in the broadcast. All right, we're going to go over to Rick Curti. Rick, why don't you give us your list as well?
Well, I don't think this is any surprise. I have Ryan Leaf. He's awful. 36 interceptions, 14 touchdowns. And he was a complete dud. Jamarcus Russell's number 2, another number 1 pick. In 2007, he held out not only during training camp, but during the season. Played like half a season, was terrible. 23 interceptions, 18 touchdowns. I have Jeff George, number 3 on my list. And a lot of people are going to say, well, he did pretty good. He was a number 1 pick. When I saw him play, he was with the Falcons. I just remember him fighting with June Jones. I remember him with the Raiders, where he did pretty good. He had 154 touchdowns, 113 interceptions. He was good, but for number 1 pick, he had a great arm. People thought he's going to be like a big superstar, like a Brett Favre, and he was a disappointment.
He was in his own mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That was his problem. He was a legend in his own mind.
Exactly. I have Todd Morenovich, number 4. He could have been a superstar. I remember him with the Raiders and drug problems, and I think he's still having some issues with drugs, unfortunately. Art Schlichter, as we talked about, he went high number 4, 1982, gambling problems, and he's still in jail. Unfortunately, that's what hurt his career, was just a compulsive gambler. I have Rick Meyer, number 2. He was number 1 was Drew Bledsoe. He was a journeyman quarterback. He had a pretty good rookie career, but rookie season, and kind of just flamed out, just bounced around from team to team. 76 interceptions, 50 touchdowns. That's not going to do it. Achilles Smith was awful. I thought he was going to be really good. 13 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. That's pretty bad. I have Joey Harrington. I know a lot of people disagree with me with Joey Harrington, that it was a product of the Lions, but I mean, he was the 3rd pick. 56.1 completions percentage, 79 touchdowns, 85 interceptions. I have Vince Young. I thought he'd be a superstar. I remember him in the Rose Bowl against the unbeatable and invincible Trojans with Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush. And he just had a great, I think he won Rookie of the Year. And after that, he just flamed out. A lot of emotional problems seemed like he had. And he was out of the league and bounced around. And I think went from other leagues to other leagues, tried to play in Canada, got hurt. Nothing ever became. I have Matt Leinart, number 10. I mean, this guy was All-American, Heisman Trophy winner, Southern California, good-looking guy. 21 interceptions, 15 touchdowns, 4,065 yards, 57.1 completion percentage. And the other 2 I have for number 11 and 12, kind of my bookend wins, because they played for the same team, was in Jacksonville. Unfortunately, Jacksonville's had a horrible luck in getting quarterbacks. Blake Bortles, I have as number 11, and I have Blaine Gabbert number 12. Both high picks, just didn't do very well. Bortles did okay. He had one great season, but, he just was very inconsistent. But he did win some playoff games, so I'll give him that. And so I think they're going to do well now, Jacksonville. I think they got a dynamic quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. I've seen him play with Clemson, and he's terrific. So I'll be surprised if he makes this list. I think he's the real deal. So we'll see what happens. So that's my list right there.
So let me give you my assessment of your list. Okay. First of all,
Okay.
the University of Oregon isn't considered quarterback U. Obviously, Achilles Smith and Joey Harrington didn't help the cause. Maybe Justin Herbert can go ahead and change perception with the Chargers. However, to Joey Harrington's defense, okay, starting out with Marty Morningwig as your head coach, okay, doesn't help matters, especially when your head coach doesn't like what the team's doing in training camp, drives off in his motorcycle and leaves. I'm sure Lions fans probably wish he would have left permanently, and that was a poor hire by Matt Millen. Now, in terms of Steve Mariuszki, okay, I think Steve Mariuszki had a chance to get him fixed. But again, you know, he could, again, you cannot continue to change offensive coordinators and head coaches and expect the quarterback to learn a new system. It will not work. We've seen it fail so many times. So while Joey Harrington might have been part of the problem, he certainly didn't have any help with the coaching staff. Steve, obviously, you know how important it is to have continuity within the coaching staff, correct?
Right. And, you know, we were talking offline earlier about Sam Darnold and how the Jets ruined him. He was taken third overall just a couple of seasons ago. And now they've ditched him, and he's down in Carolina, and now they're rolling the dice with Zach Wilson. And, you know, we'll see if the Jets do the same thing with this kid. I mean, although I think they got the right coach this time with Robert Saleh. So we'll see. But, you know, changing, offensive systems, it just ruins the quarterback's, his continuity. It ruins their, development, and it really shakes their confidence, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not going on the bus gig here with Blake Bortles. Okay, first of all, Blake Bortles did win a couple of playoff games. I like to joke around with Candy Ebling that Blake Bortles is a Green Bay Packer. You know, he's one of the arms because at least I tell her, well, at least you got to see Blake Bortles firsthand since you were taking pictures on the same sideline. Well, think about Blake Bortles. The guy's done something a lot of quarterbacks haven't done. Andy Dalton hasn't won a playoff game. Unfortunately, Matthew Stafford hadn't either. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that haven't won a playoff game as well. But Blake Bortles won a couple. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Mark Sanchez, where he's a good game manager who had a good defense. But I'm not really ready to write off Blake Bortles yet. He's got Nathaniel Hackett out in Green Bay, so there's some familiarity there. But so, I don't know. I'm not really on the Bortles bus train, but I can understand that he doesn't win pretty, but he does win when he has the right amount of talent in front of him, as we've seen. So as far as your list, Rick, I don't know about Joey Harrington, Blake Bortles. The rest of the guys on your list, to me, are definitely worthy of being there. All right, Steve, go ahead. You got a pretty interesting dozen. Go ahead.
Yeah, like everyone else, Ryan Leaf just stands out, and for all the reasons we already mentioned. And whenever I think of Ryan Leaf, just like you mentioned, Scott, the first thing that comes to mind is that blow up in the locker room where he just made a horses behind of himself with the media guys. I mean, sometimes, as we all know, some media guys can get out of line. And that's when, as a quarterback, as a leader of the team, you just have to walk away, and that would have, it probably wouldn't have sufficed with him because he wasn't playing very well. But Tim Couch, first overall, he just never really developed. Achilles Smith, as the guys mentioned, Jamarcus Russell, he's on my list. And, this was a guy that had, was already mentioned, he had all the physical tools and he just didn't have the desire. He was considered very lazy. Then he got very overweight, and the apple was there for him to pick, and he can't blame anyone but himself for that. Vince Young was on my list, Brady Quinn as well, and then Johnny Manziel. And now he wasn't drafted in the upper round. I think he was taken 22nd by Cleveland.
Right, yeah, later in the first round, correct.
Yeah, but he was still a first-round pick, and there was so much hype about him, and that's what it was. It was hype, He got by in college with, Johnny Football and all that stuff. And I never had any illusions that he was going to be a good NFL quarterback. And then, it turns out he was another one who was very lazy, didn't like to prepare. Instead of the first guy in, last guy out, it was the opposite for him. And that's not a leader on your football team. He's lasted 2 seasons through only 7 touchdowns. Todd Morenovich, who we mentioned earlier, ran into drug problems. Now, I had heard that he had cleaned up his act. We'll have to double check this. And he's an artist now. I know he was kind of forced into being a quarterback from a very young age by his dad. Robert Griffin III made my list because he had that, I want to say he threw like 20 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in his rookie season. But then after that, it steadily went downhill. And, he ended up playing, I think, about 50 games, but he was never the same after that rookie season. Terrell Pryor, Matt Leinart, who we, mentioned earlier. Matt was a very, very good college quarterback. And he, got to Arizona. He was more interested in hot tubbing with the hot chicks, So, and, this, my last pick, I put David Carr in there, and he wasn't really a bust because he was a bust because of his ability. I just think that, as you mentioned, I don't think his team really gave him a legitimate shot. He was sacked so much.
Right.
They ruined his confidence. They had a coaching carousel with him as well. He just was never given a shot. I was actually going to go with Richard Todd, who the Jets drafted in '76. And I left Todd off because I was thinking that was my New England bias against the Jets. But he had a similar blow up. I want to say 1980 or 81, where he shoved a Jets beat writer into a locker in the locker room when the guy asked him if he thought he would be better as a backup quarterback. So, but that's my list. It's very similar to the other guys. I just had a couple of different names.
Yeah, I guess I probably don't view David Carr as a bust if for no other reason. A guy's for an expansion team with no offensive line, but I understand the point of view that he can be put into that conversation. Now, what I've got is an interesting list of names, but I'm going to look at all the lists, all 3 combined. The common denominators were Ryan Leaf, Jamarcus Russell, Achilles Smith, Matt Leinart. What about Dante Culpepper? Do you guys view him as a bust?
I don't.
I don't.
No, he was a great quarterback. He just got injured. He was really good. He threw for 41
Minnesota.
touchdowns one year.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought injuries were, his downfall. Like, it was just said, he had a year where he threw 40 touchdowns. I thought he was I don't think he was like a top tier quarterback, but I thought he was upper tier in the NFL when he was, on his game. I think injuries took the toll with him.
Okay, well, that's okay. I like to bring out names because I like to get different opinions, and that's why I have 3 different opinions outside mine. Okay, so I'm going to bring up a couple more names that might strike you guys. First of all, okay, what about Christian Ponder, 2011 Minnesota Vikings? He played for 5 years. Okay, round 1, 12 overall, 38 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, doesn't grab you. 6,658 yards. I have a beautiful wife in Samantha Ponder, by the way. So, he definitely was for his look for picking a wife. But Christian Ponder was highly touted out of Florida State. Well, you guys want to put him in that category?
I looked at him, didn't put him in there. I thought the most interesting thing about him in the 2011 draft, Jake Locker selected at 8th, Gabbard at 10th, Ponder at 12th. Talk about mediocrity. And 3 guys. I remember watching that draft thinking, why are these guys not only going that high? Why are they even in the first round? And they are all.
Ponder was a stretch.
None of them were that good.
Yeah. I never thought Ponder would be that good. He was like one of those scratch your head moments in the draft where it's like, he went that high, Christian Ponder. So, but I got to Google his wife now.
Okay, well, that's okay. I'm going to bring out a couple interesting names that are a little bit current right now, but I'm very curious to get your guys' opinion on them. Let's talk about the early stages of Carson Wentz's career. So far, bust or not? What do you
I don't
Yeah.
think he's a bust, but because I never thought he was gonna be that guy.
Yeah.
I was never very high on him.
I think you need to see what the next chapter, how that
Yeah.
plays out.
You got to see what he does
Hey,
in Indianapolis.
Scott, here's a name that I was considering: Kade Mcdown, 12th overall in 1999 with the Bears.
Right, UCLA
And-
product, wasn't he?
I remember
Huh?
him.
UCLA.
Yeah, and he
Yeah.
he only played 2 years with the Bears because
His teammates hated
his,
him.
his teammates hated him,
They
and he had
I remember that.
he had a lousy attitude. You know, it was everyone's fault except for him.
Yeah.
And then they shipped him off to the Dolphins, which I loved because I'm a New England fan. And then Miami didn't want anything to do with him, and they sent him to the 49ers.
Well, one guy that unfortunately I don't view as a bust, I hope he gets a break, is Josh Rosen, because he's had more bad luck than anybody. And
I
he's
agree.
a guy that unfortunately is a victim of bad luck and bad coaching. So I hope that his career can get salvaged. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Jameis Winston for a second, guys. Do you think that up to this point in his career, he's a bust?
Yes.
What do you think?
He's close to that.
He's been disappointing more than a bust. I mean, he threw for 5,000 yards one year.
30
Not too many
touchdowns and
guys
30
have done that.
Yeah, but he threw like 30 something interceptions.
And
Yeah.
30 touchdowns.
Picky.
All right, well, since we're living in the state of Florida, at least three of us are, how do you not have a conversation like this without mentioning Tim Tebow, who did manage to win a playoff game, and he actually did okay with the Denver Broncos. But do you guys
Well,
Tim Tebow?
yeah, but the thing was when Tebow came out, there wasn't he had the hype because he had done so well in college, but most of the, NFL writers were saying that his talent wasn't going to translate to the NFL.
Was he first round pick or second round pick?
No, he was a first round pick, which is why I'm even mentioning
Broncos.
him.
That was another head
Josh
scratcher.
McDaniels.
Right. Josh McDaniels drafted him in the first round with Denver, and he couldn't even make the team in New England, even though Josh McDaniels was there. But I think Robert Kraft wanted him there. But I guess I'm going to ask you guys a yes or no question on Tim, because I want to get a few more names before we wrap up the broadcast. Okay. Tim Tebow, Rick Curti, bust, yes or no?
No.
Greg?
Not a bust. I had zero expectations.
Okay. Steve?
No, because I didn't have expectations either.
Okay. Well, you know what? I say I'll take the fifth and not have to even say anything.
Oh, come on.
I don't want to alienate my Gator followers, for God's sake.
No, go for it, man.
He was like
you know what?
He went,
I will say that he wasn't a bust. If for no other reason, the guy wins a playoff game, and he's done a lot better than he likes of Andy Dalton, Matt Stafford, and all the myriad of other guys. I think that but I think the one thing that where Tebow made a mistake was in his NFL career is when he had the opportunity to go to New York to go with Rex Ryan or go to Jacksonville to play quarterback. He opted to go with Rex Ryan and the gimmicky Wildcat, and he should have played in Jacksonville. Nobody cares about whether he'll be a tight end. He should have gone out there and played quarterback. And I've gone on record writing about this, that if Tim Tebow wanted to play quarterback in the NFL, he should have gone from Denver to Jacksonville, not New York with the Jets. Okay? Now, let's have a little fun with this, okay? Because it's the time of the year to do it. Jordan Love, is he a bust public relations-wise because of the Aaron Rodgers fiasco?
he should have kept his mouth shut. That was like, what are you doing? Just be quiet, stick to your clipboard, and don't get involved in this drama.
Right.
Just like Aaron Rodgers didn't get involved in the drama with Brett Favre and the Packers. Now Aaron Rodgers is getting in the drama, and Jordan Love should have just kept quiet and just say, you know what, go away, so then I can start.
So what are you trying to tell me? Jordan Love, give me your synopsis, Rick. You went 2 million different directions there.
Well, he hasn't played yet, so I can't call him a bust, but he needs to get a new PR person.
Jordan Love?
Yeah.
Okay. Steve?
No, I don't think he's a bust. I mean, he's playing behind Aaron Rodgers right now, so he's sitting on the bench holding a clipboard, and that's not his fault. I think he garners an incomplete right now because until he gets a legitimate shot to actually play, It's tough to call him a bust.
Oh, you know what, Steve? I wasn't going to call Jordan Love a bust anyways because the guy hasn't even thrown a pass. I'm just looking at the fact that if Green Bay Packers want some interesting, stimulating conversation, and when they listen to this broadcast, I think Jordan Love has the capabilities doing well. But yes, he is raw, and he does need some good offensive minds available. All right, Greg, go ahead.
I was going to say the odd thing about Jordan Love to me is the Packers haven't said anything about him. You think they'd have some opinion after watching him in practice for a year. And it's like he's not even on the team.
No,
So,
Exactly.
I think that, I think they're doing that on purpose because they're afraid of alienating Aaron Rodgers even more. So they just kind of shuffle him off into the closet off to the side there.
They're terrified losing Aaron Rodgers. They're trying to make him the highest paid quarterback, and he's just not budging. He's like, I want to get out of there. They should have handled like they did with Brett Favre. You don't want to be here? We'll move on. That's what the Packers need to do. You know what, Aaron? We love you, but we got another quarterback. You don't want to be here? Take care.
Yeah, it's funny how you say that, Rick. I think that the Packers should take a hardball approach with Aaron Rodgers, and we'll save this for another show, but I think since I brought up the Love thing for a moment, that they should take a hard-nosed stance. Collect all the money that he's already collected and let him go a year or two without playing football, and we'll see where his head is at. Because the last thing you want is your legacy to be defined as I decided to I couldn't play anymore because, I decided from a principle standpoint that I'm going to be remembered for the team kicking a field goal instead of me getting in the end zone. Okay, that's what you really want to be. So I think the Packers are doing the right thing. They're trying to mend the fences with a guy, but be hard-nosed in this situation. So Packers, if you're reading into anything we're saying, don't read into it, okay? It's woosworthy. I want to talk about quarterbacks. We're talking about Jordan Love. So we'll let the situation play itself out. I think it's interesting conversation, but I think the Packers are doing the right thing. And I think they're Aaron Rodgers should go out there and just sit for a while and see how he feels by not playing 1 or 2 years. And then we'll see, because I'll tell you what, if the Packers had any sense, you know what? He'll finish his career with Green Bay, whether he likes it or not, because remember, he did sign a contract and you know what? Until that contract is up, you are to play for that contract, and nobody's feeling sorry that you can't go out there and feed your family, Aaron. Okay. Now, Steve, I'm going to throw an interesting name at you, okay, since you're from the New England area, and that's Jim Plunkett. And I'll tell you why I'm bringing up Jim Plunkett. Obviously, high pick with the New England Patriots, number 1971 to 75, Heisman Trophy winner out of Stanford, played with New England. He went on to play for San Francisco 76, 77, and he went on to the Oakland Raiders from 78 to 86, 2-time Super Bowl champ in 80, 83, a backup to a starter both times, and he's the only eligible quarterback with 2 Super Bowl wins as a starter that is not inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The reason why I mentioned Plunkett is just because you don't get off to a good start with one team doesn't mean that you're necessarily a bust, okay, as we've seen with the case with Alex Smith, and there may be other guys that go out there and reinvent themselves. So this one's really geared towards you guys. Can go ahead and incorporate in a minute. But what are your thoughts about Jim Plunkett, Steve, overall?
Well, Jim Plunkett came out with all that hype, and you got to remember when he was drafted by the Patriots, they were the worst team in pro football. I always say he was drafted in 1971. I still say that 1970 New England team was the worst team I'd ever seen. I don't know how the heck they won 2 games that year. Joe Kapp had played with the Vikings the year before and had taken them to the Super Bowl. And then he got into a contract dispute with Minnesota, and somehow he ended up in New England. And he had one of the worst statistical seasons of any starting quarterback. So you got to remember, when Plunkett came to the Patriots, they were absolutely terrible. And he got so beat up playing for New England that when he ended up with the Raiders, Al Davis sat him for a year because his body was so beat up and said, you're not going to see the field for a year because we want you to heal. There was a lot of hype in New England because he actually brought a lot of hope to New England. He had a couple of decent seasons there where, I mean, they didn't have a great team around him, but, you know, he was a gutsy guy. He would stand in the pocket and take the abuse, but it took a toll on him. But, you know, the Raiders and Al Davis gave him a shot, and he made the most of it. He won 2 Super Bowls, and you could see, you know, even late in his career, the type of quarterback he could have been. So, no, he's that's a great one to point out for somebody like that.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. That was interesting to mention Jim Plunkett. Just because you don't start off well doesn't mean that you can't turn yourself around if you end up in a fresh situation. And that's when I talk about the Sam Darnolds out there getting a
Right.
change of scenery. A guy like Jameis Winston could be an excellent quarterback since he sat with Sean Payton for a year. And that kind of goes back to what you're saying about Plunkett, Steve, when you say you sit back, evaluate it for about a year, and then you see what happens. Okay, Rick and Greg, what are your thoughts about them? And I'm going to mention 3 other ones before we wrap up the show. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I think Steve summed up Plunkett pretty good. Good second half of his career. Overall, a decent career. Definitely not a Hall of Famer. But, you know, when you're the first pick in the draft, there are high expectations, probably unreasonable. You know, everyone expects Trevor Lawrence to take Jacksonville to multiple Super Bowls, I'm sure. But is he going to have the talent and coaching around him? Who the heck knows?
Okay, Rick, what are your thoughts?
Jim Plunkett, it kind of had like a rejuvenated career. Sort of like I put him up there with like, you know, like maybe like Drew Brees or something like that. I mean, he didn't have that. I mean, the numbers weren't like Drew Brees. Maybe like a Trent Gilbert, who was like a big high pick, was a bust, and then he went somewhere else and he won a Super Bowl. So I put Jim Plunkett up there with like a Trent Gilbert. Started out poorly, and then he went to the Raiders, won 2 Super Bowls. And so to me, he's not a bust because he won 2 Super Bowls. But I put him up there with Trent Gilbert. So guy that high pick, disappointment, went somewhere else, went to Super Bowl. That's where I put him at.
All right, I love where all you guys are going with Plunkett. I definitely don't feel he's a bust. I think that Jim Plunkett, to me, was an outstanding story. We got a chance, and obviously Steve Balestrieri gave outstanding insights that indeed Al Davis made him recover for a year. And obviously we saw what happens winning 2 Super Bowls. That worked out well. I'm going to mention 4 more names, and then we're going to wrap up the show, okay? Jim Druckenmiller, Virginia Tech, 26th overall by the 49ers. Only played 3 years with a touchdown, 4 interceptions. No stats mentioned. Okay, Greg, since you put them on your list, we're going to make mention of them. You can lead off with them, and then we got 3 more, then we're going to wrap it up tonight.
Yeah, I don't think people had super high expectations for Jim Druckenmiller, but when you drafted in the first round, there are certain expectations, and he did absolutely nothing, which makes me think I may want to change my Tim Tebow answer. Even though my expectations were 0, he was still drafted in the first round and basically did nothing. So based on that, I guess he's a bust.
Rick?
Yeah, I remember Druckenmiller had all the physical attributes. I think what hurt him, I think, was he accused of like rape or something, or I think he went to the Dolphins. But I think that's what kind of hurt his career. He was accused of raping some girl, and that was the last I heard of him. So yeah, he's a bust. He didn't do nothing.
Steve?
Yeah, I'm right on board with these guys about Jim Druckenmiller. I think the name always sticks out. You know, he was huge. I remember. He was like 6'5" or 6'6", and he had a cannon, and they said he could throw the football 100 yards, but he couldn't hit water out of a boat, you know, and I think he was like, what, the 25th pick or something, but he was supposed to be the next Steve Young, and, no, he never made that.
Okay, let's go on to Jake Locker. All right, Steve, you go ahead and start off with him.
Jake Locker. Wow, that's a name that I hadn't thought of in a long time. I'm drawing a blank on him. Wait a minute. I'm going to have to think about this one.
You don't have to think. I'll give you the skinny on him. 8th overall pick, obviously. And we talked about, if you want to talk about his numbers, 115 TDs and 105 interceptions, it looks like. But we're talking the fact that he was selected ahead of Blaine Gabbert and Christian Ponder. That's all you need to know.
Yeah. I just drew a total blank on him. I remember the name. I can't even tell you where he played.
Don't worry about it.
That's how forgettable he was.
Well, that's okay. Well, Greg didn't forget about him. So go ahead, Greg. What are your thoughts about Jake Locker?
Yeah, I touched on them a little earlier. That was the 2011 draft where Locklear, Gabbert, and Ponder went 8, 10, and 12. I didn't think any of them were that good coming out of college. They were given opportunities in the NFL that I recollect, didn't do much with it. And that stat you'd said with 115 TD passes, 105, that was for the three of them combined.
Oh, wow.
So a very mediocre career.
Yeah, there you go. That just goes to show you what we really think of Jake Locker. Of course, if I want to play the Chris Berman card, we'll just call him Jake Footlocker. Okay, and then we get a little bit of fun with the analogy. So, but that said, we got two more names I want to mention before we wrap her up. And we're going to go to E.J. Manuel, drafted 16th by Buffalo, 5 seasons, 20 touchdown passes, and 16 interceptions. Who wants to take the lead on this one? He played in your division, right, Steve? What do you think about E.J. Manuel?
Yeah, I wasn't impressed with EJ. But again, when he came out, I didn't have high expectations of him. So was he a bust? Yeah, I guess he was a bust, but I never expected him to mount to very much. So I can't say I was shocked with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I remember him playing at FSU, and he was a decent college quarterback. I never thought, wow, here's a first-round pick, and he went 16th overall. So you just wonder what some of these general managers are thinking at times. And I guess it just goes to show you how desperate teams are just to roll the dice on a quarterback.
Right.
Yeah, and sometimes I think, when it comes to those quarterbacks, it's like sometimes I think teams talk themselves into seeing more that's there than there really meets the eye. They might like one little facet of this guy's game, and they start talking themselves into, oh, he can do this, he can do that. And I never really had that feeling. Like you said, when I saw him in college, I thought he was good, but I didn't sit there and say, wow, he's going to be the next great one.
Good point, Steve. All right, Rick, go ahead. What are your thoughts about him? It's like Rick Curti got laryngitis. Okay, did Curti get laryngitis?
Oh, right here.
Okay, there you go. Go ahead, speak up.
Yeah, his volume's way low.
Okay, that's all right.
The way I looked at E.J. Manuel, he's sort of like a Christian Ponder, Tim Tebow, a guy that was drafted way too high, and you're just kind of scratching your head like, really? I saw him play. I thought he was okay, and he was scratching my head that they drafted him. So to be a disappointment. Technically, I probably did, but he was drafted way too high.
Okay, and our final name of the night will be Byron Leftwich. Obviously, I don't think he's a bust, only if for no other reason. He got battered in Jacksonville. So how do you go ahead and call him a bust? In my opinion, Byron Leftwich isn't a bust. And if those are he is a bust, he's a heck of an offensive coordinator. If you need a recommendation, go to Tom Brady. He'll tell you. So, all right, Rick, go ahead.
He was a really great college quarterback. I remember him. He went to the NFL, and Jacksonville was horrible. He had nothing to work with. It was terrible, and kind of like they were very good. Went to a bad team, and just nothing ever happened to him.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, he was drafted 7th overall. I considered him for my top 12. Only threw 58 touchdown passes. The one reason I didn't put him in my top 12, he did play 10 years in the NFL. And not many guys play 10 years in the NFL. So you got to give him credit for that.
Steve?
Yeah, same here. I don't think he was a bust, but, they brought him in. I think Mark Brunell was the guy at that time, wasn't he? With the Jaguars. And then, he had, a broken leg or something. And,
right.
Then he finally got to start in about his 4th or 5th year. But, I thought he was okay. I mean, I thought he was a tough guy, and he was a guy that would hang in there and play. I don't think he was a bust, but, he wasn't great by any means, but I don't think he was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to ride the bust Kool-Aid either. Again, when we talk about bust, okay, we talk about really bad, okay, and I don't feel that Byron Leftwich was really, really bad. So, but you know what? I've enjoyed having this conversation with my panel here today. You know, this is the type of broadcast that we're going to do a lot more of because I want people thinking. I want people that listen to this broadcast to go ahead and take everything we've had to say and begin to have their own particular debates about it. So that's what's such a beautiful thing about these kind of subjects, and we're going to be doing a lot more depending on what the situation is all about. So, you know, I really enjoyed this broadcast tonight, Rick, Greg, and Steve. And, you know, I look forward to doing it again. Rick, can you talk loud enough to let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Yes, my website is www.charlottebats.com. My Facebook is Charlotte MLB. I'm also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball, and I'm also on Instagram at Charlotte Bats. And my email address is clcbatsbaseball@gmail.com, and you can contact me on social media.
All right, Greg, Duke. So I want to let everybody know they get a hold of you. Is this an email address and through us?
Yeah, if you're on South Florida Tribune, you can find me there, and the place to leave comments. And my Twitter handle is Gregory Fuchs at Gregory Fuchs.
Okay, and Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. You can always find me on one of those. I'm usually lurking about somewhere in the shadows.
Very good. And in terms of finding us, you know what? You can find us on Twitter at Tribune South. Go to the website, www.southfloridatribune.com. Or you can email me at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. So, you know, and for all you folks that are listening for the first time, we ask you to please subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. We have a lot of great shows lined up. We're doing as many as we can this year, but at the beginning of this year, I've been focusing a lot of my responsibilities on the Florida Panthers, as well as the Miami Marlins, and wherever else the sports world gets me going. So on behalf of Rick Curti, Greg Fuchs, and Steve Balestrieri, my name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange, and we will see you the next time. Good night, everybody.